Welcome to this podcast, a safe space to help you let go what is no longer serving you and let's go into action. I am Liliana, your host, and I am a Thanatologist, that is Death, Loss, and Bereavement Studies, and a bioenergy healer practitioner. I help women to heal silent losses that they have not recognized as such, and to emotionally and energetically align them with their higher call, with their vision. In this podcast, I will be interviewing women coaches, holistic practitioners, entrepreneurs, women of wisdom that can share with us valuable insights and personal experiences to inspire you and support you into becoming the woman that you are meant to be. Please subscribe to this channel so you can join me in the next episode, and let's move to the conversation. Welcome everyone. Today with us we have Dr. Cheryl Kirk Duggan. How are you, doctor? So nice to see you here.
It's a blessing to see you again. I can't realize how long it's been since we met back in May. It was good.
I know, yeah. So at least I can see your lovely face online. So
Yes.
that's a plus. So I want to ask you something because you're here, you're a coach, but please tell us, what is your coaching practice?
Thank you for asking. I help people with their loss and grief, especially around loss of parents and partners, but I'm open to discussing other types of losses because there's so many that many times people don't recognize that the pain they're feeling is from an actual loss that occurred. And because grief has no time limit.
Yes, I really agree with you. I'm also helping my clients with loss. However, you went mainly for the loss of a dear person, which is a huge loss, and there's a lot of emotions that are involved. I went a bit towards the other type of loss that you're mentioning, the hidden losses that people don't recognize as such, or they don't recognize that they have to grieve them, but they're there when you lose your voice, your confidence, your faith. All of those losses are really, perhaps they seem as smaller, but it's like a pebble in your shoe. Then you have so many pebbles you cannot practically not walk, right? So this addressing loss, I think, is very important. And would you agree that it's undervalued? Like, people don't want to talk about this. Have you find that?
Absolutely, so true. I mean, you mentioned, I love your analogy about pebbles because I've seen people lose pets and just really just get very upset, or empty nests. All of a sudden, the children are gone. Now what? And a lot of times, if relationships haven't been stable but only built around the needs of the children, when the children are gone, what do we have left? Or a sense of betrayal. You thought someone was your best friend, and then you told them something in confidence, and later you hear from someone else about that confidence. So there's betrayal. There are losses for some people when they retire because they've spent so much time and effort working on their career. If they don't have plans to what to do with that time after they leave that particular career, some people really get to a deep source of depression because it's like, who am I? I know who I am because I was this professor or that designer or what have you. So there's so many divorce, bad
Oh,
breakups,
that's a
or
big
loss of
one.
dreams. Someone wanted to be an Olympic skater, and right before the tryouts, they fractured their ankle and it can't be repaired. So, or
Yes.
sometimes people want to be parents and they never are able to conceive, and sometimes they want to adopt, but that doesn't work out either. So there are multiple losses in life.
Mhm.
There's no way that
Exactly,
anyone can
because
escape loss.
when you were mentioning about wanting to be a parent and maybe you cannot or something, in here it fails the expectations. When you have an expectation that something is supposed to happen and then it doesn't happen, that is a loss. And,
Yes.
and then another thing that listeners may not realize is a loss is that every change of routine or environment, if
Yes.
you move from, if you get promoted in your job, that's a good thing. That's positive. But you are still losing something because maybe your colleagues are not going to invite you for the beer after 5 because now you're not in the same level. Now you're the boss. So you're losing that. There's so many losses that have to be really talked into the open so that people start recognizing them so that they can heal them. And that
Yes.
is that's why it's such an important job that you are doing with educating people about loss and how to overcome it. So now tell us, as a coach of grief and loss, tell our audience some piece of advice that could help them in case they're going through we are all going through losses one way or another. So give us
Mm.
an advice to all of us.
I'll give a couple of three things. One, you mentioned expectations earlier, and that is so true. We have expectations of ourselves and then whoever we surround ourselves with. It's biological family or family we created or colleagues. Around loss, we all have expectations. The holidays are coming up, so people have expectations about that. And if you don't change, if you decide to change your routine, then people say, oh, what's the matter with you? So one of the things I would like to say, number one, which I mentioned earlier and I'm repeating here now, grief and loss are an equal opportunity employer. There is no way to avoid experience loss, losing something or someone in your life. And grief is a process of dealing with that loss. Oftentimes in certain cultures, you're supposed to just suck it up and get over it. We never just get over loss. Those are very dangerous words. So my second thought would be not to pay attention to everyone's good wishes, because sometimes people mean well, but they can say things that are very harmful in terms of advice because it feels like the person who's going through the loss and then grief is being invalidated. It's like your feelings don't matter. So I'd say get someone who you can safely process your loss with. And when people say things that you know are not authentic to you, take a deep breath and let it go. Find ways also, I would say, to process that grief on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. That is so important because sometimes we live up here in our head, but if you get our heart.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. And for that matter, as you say, don't really take to heart what people tell you about what your grief should look like. But also, might as well mention that when another person is the one that is having grief, don't try to come up with that word that you don't know how to say. Just give space. And
Yeah.
that's more valuable than tell her or him whatever awkward thing you think is best.
That is an absolutely brilliant statement to create a safe space. And a lot of times people don't need us to say anything. They need to know that we are present for them. So that may be just sitting with them, listening to music. It may be bringing a pot of tea and serving them. It may mean sending them cards because they can't really have a space to visit. And one of the most important things about creating that safe space is that I shouldn't be so concerned about how I'm feeling about your loss, but how, if I consider you to be a friend, how do I create space for you so that you don't have to pretend to be anything or go through anything other than what you're going through? And
That's
then when you
brilliant.
contact me, I can say, how can I support you? Or I can just come by and sit and be quiet. Or do little things like send cards or maybe have a meal sent. Various things. But again, that means we have to keep our egos safe in silence. And we also need to not try to then live out our own loss and grief through our friend, because that's equally as bad because we're two different people.
Definitely. That's very, very, very wise. So now to move on through from the grief advice, I'd like to ask you if you will be able to give us a couple of thoughts on the journey that you have gone through as a coach. First, talk a bit. What do you, well, or maybe you didn't, but tell us if you did. You have to let go of something to become the coach that you are now today.
Thank you for that. I think that's a fascinating question because as you were stating it, I went, when did I become a coach? Let me back up. My early training is in undergraduate and in the master's level. Undergraduate was voice and piano, and the master's levels was voice. And later, after I accepted my call to ministry, I did the Master's of Divinity and then the PhD in Religious Studies. So although early on I said I never, ever, ever want to be a teacher, I didn't realize two things. Number one, musicians who are superb at their craft always have a small studio, because if I can teach you something, then I can make sure that I'm doing it with my own practice myself. A coach involves being a teacher, so I've got years of experience of teaching, where a coach is a teacher and the then some. And for me, the then some is creating the space for the student to just expand and grow. That means, and I think a lot of times teachers have to be coaches, coaches have to be teachers. So there's a very thin line between it. A lot of times it's our perceptions. One of the things I've learned through my chaplaincy training, which I did at the Durham VA hospital here in North Carolina, was what we call active listening. The best teachers and the best coaches know how to actively listen. So if I'm listening with heart, head, spirit, then what I may see is that, again, the person needs more quiet. Or direct instructions won't really work for this person, but if I can tell them a story, that will give them something beyond themselves to maybe hold their dreams onto, and will be more manageable. Rather than if I tell them directly, well, you didn't do this. What if they grew up in a home situation where they're always put down? Then if I as a coach come up and say, well, you can't, they stop hearing me. So a lot of times as coaches, we need to ask questions. When you think about heat, what does that mean for you? When you think about this or that, and as I listen, I will learn how to communicate effectively with the client. And as I learn how to effectively communicate, then I can share whatever we're training to do. Because as I start teaching several years ago, I would say, I tell the first day of class, I'm a teacher learner. So therefore, as we're working through whatever the curriculum, the syllabus is, if I didn't learn 30% more about the subject matter and about human nature, they hadn't done their job. My job was to provide space for them to learn and for me to learn from them. So it's never top down. It's always a mutual system of learning and teaching. Because as I'm paying attention to my students, you can usually tell on faces, oh, they got it. It's like the light bulb went off. Other times it's like, they didn't get it, which means I have to go back, but I have to pay attention. And one of the other things I'll say is I always come from love. And a friend of mine gave me the definition of love. Love equals facts, freedom, appreciation, communication, but I add another C, compassionate communication, trust, and sincerity. I'll repeat. So love is freedom. So I'm going to give you the freedom to be who you are and not try to remake you. Appreciation. I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn from you or coach you, however that, so it's a learning process. Trust. I'm going to trust that when the environment is safe, you will learn to your best capacity. I will teach and learn to the best of my capacity. And then sincerity. Now, that doesn't mean we can't laugh and have fun, but that means I have a very clear commitment to your growth and well-being. And so that also frames all that I do, including my teaching and my writing.
Wow. Well, that is fantastic. I'm sure our listeners are going to find this information very useful. Thank you for being a participant in this project. And I am going to ask you for your contacts so that if somebody wants to get in touch with you, enroll in your program, whatever it is that they need or have questions, even
Sure.
they can contact you. It'll be great to have this communication. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I really enjoy our talk.
Thank you for the invitation and all the best.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Let Go and Let's Go. I really hope that we inspire you into moving 1 degree closer towards your vision. You deserve to live an inspired life. If you resonated with anything we said, or you'd like to learn more about how I can help you to get into alignment with your soul's purpose, please reach out. Love to hear from you. Send me an email, info@lilianachamberlain.com, or I will be leaving a link in the description. And please remember to subscribe to the channel so you can join me in the next episode. Meanwhile, remember, keep shining because your light is only meant to get brighter.